They were brother and sister, bound by blood, music, and a shared dream that began far from the bright lights of Lynyrd Skynyrd. Steve and Cassie Gaines grew up in the small town of Miami, Oklahoma, where Friday night football, family, and faith shaped their world. Long before the fame, they were just two talented kids singing in school, playing in local bands, and chasing the same dream that would one day unite them on some of the biggest Southern rock stages. Steve's journey started with a simple spark, a concert in Kansas City where he saw the Beatles perform. From that night on, he was hooked. He formed local groups like the Ravens and Crawdad and poured his soul into every note he played. His sister Cassie had the same spark. Her voice carried the gospel and grit of Oklahoma, a sound that would later help define the magic of Lynyrd Skynyrd's female backing trio, the Honkettes. It was Cassie who introduced Steve to the band in 1976, a moment that changed everything. With his powerful guitar work and songwriting, Steve helped create Skynyrd's final album, Street Survivors. But just as their star was rising, tragedy struck. On October 20th, 1977, Steve and Cassie Gaines lost their lives in the Lynyrd Skynyrd plane crash. They left behind not only music, but a legacy born in Oklahoma and carried forever in the hearts of their family, friends, bandmates, and Southern rock fans. Cassie LaRue Gaines, affectionately called the Okie Songbird, was born January 9, 1948, in Miami, Oklahoma. Though it is spelled M-I-A-M-I, like the city in Florida, it is pronounced Miami. Cassie attended college studying music and physical education. She was a cheerleader in high school and was a lifeguard at the Rotary Park swimming pool. A bit more coming up on Cassie a little later. Now, let's move on to her younger brother, Steve. Stephen Earl Gaines was born in Miami, Oklahoma, September 14, 1949. Miami is located 190 miles south of Kansas City, and Steve was to make that trip to Kansas City quite a few times in his life, but there are two times that actually stand out, and both were life-changing experiences for him. The first one was on September 17, 1964, a few days after his 15th birthday, and it was to see the Beatles perform at Municipal Stadium. Now, if this concert was a turning point musically in Steve's life, which many, including Steve, said it was, maybe it was fate, especially for Steve. But on the way home from that show, 15-year-old Steve Gaines was said to have pestered his dad the whole trip back to Oklahoma for a guitar. Also along on that trip and listening to him go on and on about the guitar was his sister Cassie. She too was influenced by the concert and was to become one of the most important figures in her brother's life growing up. Soon after the Beatles concert, and with his new guitar in hand, he formed his first band in high school, the Ravens, and many other bands after that, the Pink Peach Mob, Rio Smokehouse, Detroit, and Crawdad, and Man Alive, on which he would be joined by his sister Cassie, who had a great singing voice. By this time, he had already bought his famed Les Paul Black Beauty, a guitar that would not leave his side. His friends and family called that guitar his third arm. During this time in his life, Steve honed his guitar and vocal talents to a keen edge. There's been quite a few recordings from this time surface. If you're interested in hearing some of them, a quick YouTube search or Spotify will get you there. Listen to some of them, and you can hear the beginning of his guitar style come to life. Steve's sister Cassie, who was a year and 9 months older than Steve, loved to sing. Her and Steve were both very talented vocalists, but Cassie would move on after being asked to become a backup singer for Lynyrd Skynyrd. This was late in 1975. Once in, and knowing the band was looking for a guitarist to take the place of Ed King, who had quit back in May of 1975, she was dropping hints that her younger brother Steve would be a great fit for that spot. Now here again is where a twist of fate played a part in Steve Gaines' life. The day before Lynyrd Skynyrd's April 10, 1976 show at New York's Beacon Theater, guitarist Gary Rossington broke the ring finger on his left hand when he slammed a door on it, forcing the band to postpone the live album they was going to do until July to allow him time to fully recover. This accident led the band to extend their current tour to an extra month, which included a date in Kansas City on May 11, 1976. When the band passed through Kansas City, Cassie convinced Steve to drive up from Oklahoma. She then arranged for him to jam with the group on their version of Jimmie Rodgers' T for Texas. Was this an audition? I don't know. But I do know that the band would often get a guest guitarist up to jam on that song. Even the great Leslie West got up on stage and tore it up with the Skynyrd boys. And of course, rumors started to fly that he might be the third guitarist in the band. But story has it that Leslie said he would only do it if they billed the band Lynyrd Skynyrd featuring Leslie West. True? I don't know. But it's out there. But it is true that on May 11, 1976, Steve Gaines headed north once again to Kansas City, but this time not only to see a concert and his sister, but to get up and jam a song with Lynyrd Skynyrd. And jam he did. Less than a month later, on June 3rd, Steve was asked to join them in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He would have 1 month of working with the group before the recording of the One More From the Road live album, which was recorded at the Fox Theater in Atlanta over 3 shows, July 7th, 8th, and 9th. Gary Rossington says, besides his great talent Steve Gaines brought to the band, he also lit a fire under us we had been missing. We only had a couple of weeks to get ready for that live album, and we worked harder than we had in a long time. And it sure showed. In my opinion, One More From the Road was one of the best live albums in rock and roll at that time. It's one of them long-playing albums you put on and you don't skip around. You listen to it in its entirety. The guitar playing and tone on that album is just fantastic. Ronnie's vocals are spot on. The groove is so in there, especially for a live album. And I believe Steve Gaines was a big part of that. Not just in his playing ability, but the whole package he brought to the table. Steve's only studio album with the band, and Skynyrd's last, was Street Survivors, and we got to hear some of Steve's songwriting. Gary Rossington again said, Steve had all these songs he had already written, and we sat down and Skynyrdized them a little bit, and they came out sounding great. In the summer of 1977, in the Muscle Shoals studio, and that's the same studio they sang about on Sweet Home Alabama, the band locked themselves in to record their 5th studio album. Gaines was a great protagonist, contributing 4 compositions, 2 solo and 2 with Van Zandt, and taking the lead vocals on Ain't No Good Life and sharing it with Ronnie on You Got That Right. His incredible guitar work can be heard on pieces such as I Know a Little, Honky Tonk Nighttime Man, and the sounds that come out of his Strat on That Smell. Asked to reflect on his success the day Street Survivors was released, Steve commented, "This is like a start of what I want to do. This is the beginning. I hope that I can be good enough to keep on going. This is all I ever dreamed about, you know? Just doing this." 3 days later, Steve and his sister Cassie would board the Convair CV-240 in Greenville, South Carolina, heading to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, ending that dream. It's true, Cassie did not want to get on the plane that fateful night. Some even say she was ready to ride the equipment truck to Baton Rouge. But she boarded with the rest of the band, and now all we can do is wonder the what-ifs. Had that plane made it to Baton Rouge, I believe that Lynyrd Skynyrd was headed for bigger and better things to come. And I think Steve Gaines was also. I believe Ronnie Van Zant saw that too. He knew. Ronnie was a great songwriter in his own right and saw Steve's potential. There was a good chemistry between him and Steve. Gary and Alan were both working hard again, and the band had caught a second wind with the help of Steve Gaines. Steve, along with his sister Cassie, were both killed in the plane crash, along with Ronnie Van Zant and 3 others. Steve had a bright future in front of him. Even if Lynyrd Skynyrd had folded, I think Steve had the talent to go on and really make a name for himself as a guitarist, singer, and songwriter. Steve was married to his wife Teresa for 3 years, and they had 1 daughter named Corinna. Steve was 28 years old at the time of his death. His sister Cassie, who was not married and had no children, was 29. The city of Miami, Oklahoma, has honored the Lynyrd Skynyrd siblings with several memorials, including a street named Gaines Drive, an exhibit at the Dobson Museum, and Steve and Cassie Gaines Memorial Scholarship at NEO College. And in 2018, Steve and Cassie were inducted into the Oklahoma Music Hall of Fame.